If you look in the varparams sample project, you'll notice that the function that I wrote, or the procedure rather, called medal, has this syntax. It's been preceded with tform1 and a dot. Now that shows that this procedure is bound in to the tform1 type. It's been declared up here. You can see it's in the public section, procedure medal. It's got the same name, but minus the tform1 part in the declaration. Then it's got the same list of arguments. And that's the way to bind in a procedure as a method, to use the object-oriented jargon, into a class. And it's generally considered to be good practice, since Object Pascal is object-oriented, to implement procedures in that way. In fact, it would be perfectly legal syntax for me to do this. Just delete that part, and I no longer need this declaration up here, so I can comment it out, or I might as well delete the whole thing. And now when I run it, and the code behaves in exactly the same way. Now, in a form like this, with a simple program, it really doesn't matter too much whether you do a standalone procedure in this form, or whether you do the more object-oriented type of syntax, as I had before, with the tform1 name specified, then a dot. Here, as I've added this syntax, if I try to run it now, there's going to be an error. And it says that the method identifier was expected. Now, of course, I've deleted the declaration from up here. There is a shorthand way of adding it, and that's with the key combination, Control-Shift-C. And when I do that over the procedure header, Lazarus, or Delphi does the same thing, will add the declaration to the private section up here. Don't worry too much about the private and public, that's not particularly important. Just bear in mind that you do need, in one of those two sections, the procedure to be declared if you intend to use it as a method of the form. One advantage of having it as a method rather than as a standalone procedure is that I can now reference anything that was within the scope of the form. For example, this memo up here, I've got memo 1. If I want to reference that, here I'm just using the code completion system, which knows that I've got access to memo 1, and just put in a string and run it. And you can see it's printed hello. If I go back to using a standalone procedure, and once again I'll have to delete this and run it again, it says there's an error because I'm no longer in the same scope as memo 1. In order to access memo 1, I would have to refer to the form object that's declared up here. It's a variable form1, which is of the type tform1. And I would have to put that in front of the reference to memo 1. And now I can run it again. And this time it works. So no need to worry too much about the syntax for now. I'll talk much more about object orientation and also about how forms are defined and created and what the meaning of the syntax for declaring and adding items to the form class definition. I'll have a lot more to say about that later in the course.